Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and it's another week in review. And before we dive into it, I do want to address a question that I got a lot of comments on in last week's video, last week's week in review. So, first of all, if you haven't checked out last week's week in review, feel free to check that out. Honestly, you just need to spend about 3 seconds there because you'll see behind me, I was on the couch that week, I go back and forth in these, and you'll see behind me a giant fireplace full of Horizon Zero Dawn just all over the mantle, and I didn't talk about it in that video because I didn't think about it. I totally forgot about it, that it was there behind me, but it was there behind me. So you can check that out. The short version of that, just for context, because I got different kinds of questions. Anything from, hey, Alex, you're going to talk about that Horizon Zero Dawn behind you, to, hey, I thought you didn't back Horizon Zero Dawn. All of those things. And by the way, this is the week in review. We'll get to the game news, the updates, the what I played, the videos of the week coming up. We'll do all that in a second. Timestamps as usual, all over the place. But yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn. So basically, the very short version of that is, and I mentioned this briefly in my to back or not to back on Monday. Short version is that Steamforge Games reached out. I've been working with them since Monster Hunter World. I feel like there's another game I worked with them on. But either way, Monster Hunter World, I worked with them on that one, and they reached out and said, hey, we'd love for you to cover Horizon Zero Dawn. And I said, hey, I'd love to cover it. I'm a huge fan of the video game. Also, just a bit of a word of warning, I know that it has mixed reviews. There are a bunch of people that like it, have nice things to say about the game, and then there's some people, including no pun included, but not just no pun included, who had a lot of negative things to say about the game. And by the way, these are my concerns walking into it. On the one hand, I like a lot of what I'm seeing, and the miniatures look amazing. On the other hand, I do have concerns about the gameplay, specifically these two areas. And they said, no problem. We would love for you to cover it for better or for worse. So basically, I'll be covering it. Why have you not seen anything about it until now? Because they sent me the all-in pledge, except for the miniatures, except for the base game. They sent me everything except for the base game, which makes it very hard to play the game. So currently, I'm waiting on the base game. I believe they're off busy at Gen Con, so I don't know what the gap is until I actually get the base game. Once I get it, I'll have an unboxing. I'm sure it's lots of pretty plastic. And then from there, I will dive into it at some point and get a feel for the game, the experience. It might take a bit till I get the review, specifically because I have heard from some people that some of the potential complaints, if I share them, are possibly improved by some of the expansions. So I do want to get that feel. It might take a while. I'm sure you'll have brief thoughts and things like these videos when I talk about the gameplays. Anyways, that was way longer of a tangent than I planned on. So, board game news, starting off the bat with Seven Wonders Architects. So basically, Asmodee announced, or I don't know who actually announces things these days for Seven Wonders, Repost, whoever makes the announcements for Seven Wonders, announced Seven Wonders Architects, a new standalone game in the line of Seven Wonders, which is one of my oldest and most favoritist games, sort of. It's actually not my most favoritist games, but it's a game I really enjoy, and a game that is from the first games I ever bought once I started getting into designer board games. So it's one of the few games I have left in my collection. But Seven Wonders Architects, I'm sure I'll be getting it or paying attention to it as we know more about the game. We have Crescent Moon from Osprey Games, a new asymmetric area control game that they recently announced. Don't know much about it just yet, but looking forward to it. When you say asymmetric, I already am intrigued but nervous, meaning, is it going to be an amazing experience where the asymmetry does it justice? Is it going to be too many rules to have to learn? Always intrigued. Sometimes they outperform expectations. Sometimes they don't outperform expectations. They underperform. That's the word I'm looking for. Then we have Azul. Azul continuing their line of games with Queen's Garden. It's going to be another game in the Azul line of games. They have Azul. They have Summer Pavilion. They have Stained Glass of Sintra. And now they have Queen's Garden, plus like a few offshoots and expansions and things like that as well. Then we have Jurassic World is getting a legacy game from Prospero Hall coming in 2022, summer 2022. So it's going to be a whiles off, but it's a legacy game featuring Jurassic World. I am definitely interested, definitely not completely sold. Prospero Hall has been putting out a lot of titles that have both been some really solid hits and some things that I'm sure that they have their audience, but I'm not part of that audience. So I'm definitely interested. I love Jurassic World as a IP, and I love legacy games, so I'm definitely paying attention. We'll see how far it goes from there. And then we have Keyforge. Keyforge has a bit of an announcement in the sense that Keyforge is going on a bit of a temporary or permanent hiatus. They say temporary, but when these things happen, once they do, it can turn permanent. So Keyforge, if you're not familiar, is going to be the deck building game from Richard Garfield. Not deck building as in Dominion, but deck building as in, well, I don't even know if it's deck building, because you're not really building a deck. You get a pre-constructed deck that's programmatically generated, and each deck is completely unique, and you fight each other with these pre-programmed decks that then get tournament points as far as how good they are, and a whole bunch of stuff that I'm completely uninterested in, just not what I'm looking for in a, well, sort of collectible genre, either way. But yeah, they are going on a temporary hiatus because their code for generating new decks is broken, sort of. That's what they kind of seem to say. In other news, Solforge popped up on Kickstarter recently from Dreamblade Entertainment, I believe that's the name of the company that brings you Ascension. They popped up on Kickstarter with Solforge, a completely different, not at all remotely similar, pre-programmed, pre-constructed deck game where you can, designed by Richard Garfield as well, just, small overlaps. Although this one's totally different because you get two pre-constructed decks and then you shuffle them together, and that's going to be a big difference. I mean, there's other gameplay differences, but either way, basically one pre-programmatic deck thingy closes, another pre-programmatic deck thing opens. I don't think that'll ever pick up quite as much as the saying when one door opens, another closes, one door closes, another opens, but it does almost have the same ring to it. Then, in Kickstarter news, we have a few things, and the first one I'm not actually sure is Kickstarter, I'm just assuming it's Kickstarter, which is going to be from Off the Page Games, the company that brought you Mind MGMT. I don't know why I feel the need to reach over and get it, but I do feel the need to reach over and get Mind MGMT, because I still haven't played it. I really want to play it. But Mind MGMT from Off the Page Games, they are bringing you a new game, which I don't know anything about it, but called Hero Country Gothic Conflict. I think that's what it's called. I assume it's going to be on Kickstarter. I don't know for sure. We have Power Plants. They announced their Power Plants going to be KTPG, Kids Table Board Gaming. That's going to be their newest Kickstarter coming October 26th, which I already talked about in the past, but they have an official date attached to it. And then we have Game Trays. Game Trays, which, is the company that makes Game Trays, announced their own game, which is fun. Designed by Travis Chance, I believe, and someone else. I don't recall who, but that's going to be Forsaken, coming to Kickstarter in 2022. So basically, the company that makes inserts for games is now making games. I have no idea who's making the insert for their game, though. I hope it's Game Trace. It would be really awkward if it isn't. Anyways, and then in board game adjacent news, we have Pandasaurus had this weird thing going on. Not weird, I mean, it's, I guess, just a thing. Pandasaurus had a bit of a warehouse theft where someone stole a bunch of games, including some Dinosaur, I think there was Dinosaur World Kickstarter pledges, as well as, what was their newest game? I don't remember. One of their new games, Brew maybe? Maybe it was Brew. But basically, they stole some games from the warehouse. They put them on eBay, apparently, which was a mistake, because these games aren't really available yet. So there's not a ton of people selling them on eBay, or at least those that are selling them as in like, hey, you can get these when they arrive. And these ones didn't have that disclaimer. So the police are looking into it. I haven't seen any recent updates about it. I hope someone gets caught. I don't know. I mean, basically, it's a bunch of pledges of Dinosaur World and Brew and games and stuff. So, I mean, stealing games from warehouses apparently could be a profitable thing. I remember they had this thing where, with Blacklist Games, had this weird thing where somebody had managed to get an entire pallet of games of Street Masters Aftershock just like rerouted, or maybe it's Brook City. But they just had basically rerouted a bunch of games on a pallet to some other place. Some weird things go on in the background of gaming manufacturing and stuff. And at the end of the day, games are products. They go through some of the same weird drama that any product can go through. That's going to be that. Then we have Catan. Catan announced that they're coming out with a line of beers. And it's the kind of thing that I'm wondering or trying to ensure that it's not like April 1st right now, because, I mean, they could sell well. A bunch of line of Catan beers, it could become the go-to drink at any board game night, just because thematic. Not even if it's good, it's just like, hey guys, we got beers tonight, keep them away from the games, on the coasters, on those things on the side of the table, whatever it is, but Catan beers. I mean, I'll probably do it myself at some point, just because why not? But either way, they are coming out with a line of beers for Catan, because we needed that. I say that jokingly, but I'm interested in it. I do want it, all things considered. Then additionally, we have Roguebook. This is completely board game adjacent, not even the same, but Roguebook is going to be a Slay the Spire knockoff game, or whatever it is. Not knockoff, but the general genre of deck building adventure games on video games and not, board games. There's a whole bunch of them out there. There's Slay the Spire, there's Roguebook, there's Monster Train, there's at least one other I'm not remembering, probably even more, and there's some apps too. There's a great app, I can't remember what it's called. If I could, I'm not going to look for it, and I don't want to look for it, but there are some other solid apps you can get. But Roguebook is currently on sale on Steam if you are interested in that one. You can save $5. It's not a huge saving, but I think it went from 20 to 15. So maybe it was 25 to 20. It went down by $5. So if you were interested in it anyway, like I was, you can go ahead and buy it like I did. If you weren't interested in it, then the $5 sale is probably not enough to move you over the finish line. And that's going to be all the board game stuff, which brings us to the topic of the week, which topic of the week this week is kind of, I have no format for this. I rarely have a real format, but I usually have some idea of where I want to go with the topic, and this time I don't. My topic of the week is Gen Con and conventions. I have zero idea where I want to go with this. I'm just going to start talking and hope that the words fill in the blanks. Basically, Gen Con and conventions. So I am not going to Gen Con. I should be going to Origins, probably not for the full thing, probably for like 2 days, maybe the Thursday, Friday, we'll see. I hope to go to PAX Unplugged, not certain yet. I hope to go to Dice Tower West, not certain yet. There may be some others. I don't know exactly what I will or won't be going to, but basically just talking about conventions. See, my own personal bias, I've been in board games since 2012, or late 2011, early 2012. I have never had a real desire to go to conventions. And it's a combination of practicality and a lack of a draw. So let me just go through where I am or where I was and how that's shifted, because now I want to go to every single convention under the sun. So as a starting baseline, conventions, if for those, and by all means, as someone who hasn't gone to conventions, if I say anything that's wrong, please let me know, correct me in the comments down below. But conventions, for the most part, if you're interested in the new games, you're actually probably overpaying for them. If you go to conventions to buy the newest game from whatever, stall or vendor, you're probably paying more there than you would by just waiting a bit and buying it online. Now, some of the benefits are you see the game in front of you and you're tempted by the game, but that doesn't make the game better when you buy it. You can still buy it when you get home. A real benefit's going to be the fact that sometimes, like I remember it happened with Root. Root's going to be a good example. And there's dozens of other games, Root, when it first came out. But sometimes games will be available at a convention and there'll be so much buzz around them that you won't be able to get them until the next print run. So there can be an availability thing similar to Kickstarter. You're kind of guaranteed your copy, but then you'll have to wait. But like right now, for instance, Gloomhaven is available at Gen Con. If you are at Gen Con right now, you can buy Gloomhaven, or you could go online and buy it for probably cheaper. I say probably because I don't actually know the price at the convention, but in general, conventions aren't the best place to buy games if you're looking for price as a primary factor. It's where you're interested and you're having fun and you're willing to do it, and you are supporting the publisher. They have to deliver multiple pallets of games to the convention, but it's not where you go to buy games. It's where you go to have fun, and now you're pulled into the hype of games. So that was one reason off the table. I'm not going there for sales. Now, before people correct me, yes, there often are times where you'll have like these flea markets set up, or people will set up their own little private sales of games or different things like that. So there are opportunities to buy games cheaply at conventions, but it's not the main draw, especially for new games. It's kind of like they'll have a secondary eBay kind of type situation in the background. So they have that. As far as going to conventions to play games, I mean, I guess you can call it a draw, but I've play games without going to conventions. I don't need to, schedule travel and lodging and booking time out of my week, my job, vacation days, family. I don't need to juggle all those things to go play games. Playing games at a convention is not something I have a really strong interest in. I have an interest in playing games in general, but the draw of going to a convention to play games didn't really do it quite as much. Now, the idea of getting away to play games, that certainly has merit. That's why my wife and I are yearly vacation, yearly with a little asterisk because we haven't done it since pre-COVID, but yearly vacation was going to Ravenwood Castle out in Hocking Hills. It's a castle owned by someone who's into games, someone who runs a board game cafe, and they have like a game catalog. We often bring our own games anyways, but we'll browse what they have available. We'll play games for 3 days. Going away to play games is great. But again, that's also a much more easily affordable trip for us, and it's a little getaway for the two of us. It's not a giant, overwhelming haul. It's just the two of us, getting away, watching TV, and playing games for a few days. So yeah, we'll do that. But again, going to a convention to play games didn't have a huge draw, because there's a lot of work and logistics and costs in doing that just so I can play games, and I'm playing games anyways. Now granted, depending on your game group or lack of game group, or depending on your access to games and your desire to try out a variety of different games, that may have a different appeal. Because I had the same problem with gaming cafes. I never really went to board game cafes. I went there once. I went to one board game cafe once just to try out the experience. And my trying out the experience resulted in me thinking it was exactly what I thought it would be, which is I'm now playing games in someone else's space and I'm less comfortable doing so. I'd rather play games in my own space. But again, there are target audiences for those. I just wasn't one of them. And then the logistics of it, the fact that all these things are difficult on my end, is just that I have a wife, I have 4 kids, I have a job. All these things make it hard to get away. Not impossible, but hard. It's harder to justify getting away for a convention when I have limited availability vacation days and I don't want to burden my wife with leaving her with the 4 kids, and going with her would be hard because we have to deal with a babysitter for 3-4 days. It's generally practically problematic for us to do so. So not impossible, just a lot of work. And so I never really went to a convention, despite being into board games for, well, a long time. I've been into board games for a long time. I never really went to a convention. But then things shifted for me because I have a different motivation to go to conventions than I ever did before. Like I said already, I wasn't in it for getting the physical games. I wasn't in it for the playing of games. But now I have the interest, the appeal of getting into it for the interaction with people, the interaction with publishers, the interaction with just anyone who I've started to connect names to faces with. Like now I want to go to a convention so that I can hang out with any of the people I have interacted with over this past year and a half as a content creator. Now I want to go to a convention so I can meet some of you, and names in the comments, or whether you've commented in the past, whether you've subscribed, whether you're a patron, whether you're just someone who watches my videos. There's a different reason to go to a convention that I never had before. I always had the interest in board games, but I didn't have the connection with the people the way I do now. Not to say you can't connect with anyone. You could connect with anyone, but again, the balances of the work and struggle to make it happen. So now I want to go to conventions. Now I want to go to every single one. Now I still have the balance of juggling my responsibilities to Rena, my wife. I mean, I'm not going to just saddle her with the kids every 2 months while I go off gaming for 4 days. Nor is, like I said already, nor is it easy for me to go with her either. We do plan on going to some of these together if we can. Dice Tower West, we might be going together. We're not sure. We're still trying to see what we can do. And then when I go to conventions, I'm trying not to do it over the weekend, so she's not completely like for instance, when I go to Origins, I'm planning on going Thursday, Friday, because that way the kids are in school for most of it, and so she has a minimal extra amount of work while I'm gone, as opposed to me leaving her with the kids for 4 days. So it's a balance, and it's something that will hopefully get easier as our kids grow older. Our youngest is still 2 years old, which means he's still very much a handful. If he wasn't our youngest, if we were just talking about the older 3, leaving them home for 3 days or 4 days is not the biggest deal. They are mostly self-sustaining. They require attention and care, but they are much, much easier than a 2-year-old. So these things are balances. I'd like to go to as many of these as possible. I like interacting with people in the space. I've said this again and again over the past, while now. But by far my favorite part of being in content creation was interacting with the space in a different way, interacting with people in a different way, putting faces to names, talking with people who I've admired for years. And now I just want to go to a convention so I can do that even more. I just want to hang out with these people who I appreciate, who I value, who I have enjoyed their content, enjoyed their presence, and have more of a motivation to engage in this space in general. And I'd love to see you there whenever I go, or to whichever ones I go to. If you ever see me at a convention, by all means, walk up, say hi. You don't have to. You absolutely don't have to, but don't be shy to. Keep in mind, I'm still someone who's new enough in this space that when I see insert any name here, I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to interact with anyone else. So if you in any way have that about me, by all means, just understand I am just someone who plays games. I've been doing it for, 10 years now. I've been playing games for 10 years now. And I've been just somebody who plays games for 10 years now. Sure, for the past year, I've suddenly started a YouTube channel, and it's a year and a half now. I've started a YouTube channel, and I've changed the way I interact and engage. But I'm still very much new enough to this that I'm more on your side of where this is coming from than on the other side. I'm still more on your side of this is cool. I get to interact. I get to talk to the person whose content I watch. I get it. I really do. There's a lot of people. Whatever. I'm rambling now. Anyways, that's my topic of the week. Conventions and the way I look at them, the way I hope to engage with them. And I'm incredibly sad right now. I'm not at Gen Con. Like I mean, right about now, if you're at Gen Con and you're watching this, first of all, why are you watching this while at Gen Con? Go have fun at Gen Con. Watch this video in 3 days from now. But either way, if you're at Gen Con, Jesse from Quacks, Shira, they're both going to be there. Hunt them down and says, Alex says hi or something, because I mean, I'm jealous. I'm like genuinely jealous that they're there right now. It's just a balance. I'll be there eventually. Anyways, moving on to what I played. So, what I played, a few things I haven't logged yet because I'm still behind in logging, but what do I have? I have Myth and Goal, which I think I said that last week. Did I say? Maybe I told you this last week. I don't remember. I played Myth and Goal online from Blacklist Games. I may or may not have told you this already. Overall, I enjoyed it, but I need to play it more for like a full review, but I did enjoy it. Very much looking forward to it. We have Kokopelli. Got in more plays of Kokopelli. I have a review coming up on the channel soon for that one. We'll talk about that. We have the game. I played the game, like, you know, the game called The Game, little small card game from Pandasaurus Games. But I played the game again with, actually with Jesse and Rena. Basically, we had played Tranquility. We had liked Tranquility. For me, Tranquility replaces the game, but I played the game with Jesse to show him what I meant by that. He likes Tranquility more as well. I think I may still keep the game. I still like the puzzle it presents, or more of an experience, a little fun cooperative experience. But either way, I reviewed it once in a little roundup of 5 different games. More plays of Mythic Mischief. Got 2 more plays of Mythic Mischief in. We got some Paleo. I got some more Paleo in. Paleo is a great game. I'll have a review coming up on that one shortly. I've been holding off on reviews because I want to continuously play it more, but I've been getting more plays of it in, so I'll have that. We have Quacks of Quedlinburg. Got another play of Quacks in Quedlinburg in with my first play with Ricky, actually. She played it for the first time, which was relevant to a video that went up, well, on Friday this past week. We have Calico. I got another play of Calico. I got in Grid Ball. We have, what do I have? I have Mythwin. I got a play of Mythwin. Mythwin's going to be an upcoming Kickstarter. We'll be talking about that more. I will have coverage of it. We have Nadian and Cassian. Where are they? They're behind me over there. I got in like, I don't know, 15 plays of Cassian in one day just because I haven't played in a bit, and I just sat down and played for like 2 hours and gotten like 15 plays, and then gotten like 4 or 5 plays of Nadian as well, Nadian, and I think that's all as usual. Oh no, I played Hegemony. I didn't log that one yet. This is the problem. I need to log games, but I played Hegemony, which we'll talk about soon at the end of the video. But that is going to be an upcoming Kickstarter, by the way, in case you're wondering what it is. And that's what I currently have down for what I played, which brings us to the week in review. What videos went up this past week, and we'll talk about all of those. So, to begin with, this past Saturday, the first thing that went up was the Legendary Gamer unboxing, which is basically a chance to win, speaking of conventions, it was a chance to win a trip to Gencon 2022, sponsored by Upper Duck Games. The video's not sponsored, the giveaway is sponsored by Upper Duck Games. It was a fun little video, a little off-brand for the channel. It was basically me spending a whole video announcing someone else's giveaway. Basically, they reached out to me to do it, and I was like, hey, sure, I mean, I don't mind. I'll throw it up on Saturday. It's all good. I like doing unboxings. I like the silliness and the conversation of an unboxing, so I enjoy those. But it's a giveaway for Gen Con and other games as well. If you want to be entered for that, there's you can jump to the video, check the description. There'll be a link. You can head on over to that and enter for that. Then we have later on Saturday, we have a gameplay I did of Verdant with Rena. So she and I did a gameplay and review of it. Then on Sunday, we had 10 CMON games I wasn't going to back, but did. And for the most part, the title's accurate. I would say the last one is not. The last one is going to be the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077. But for the other 9 games, they are genuinely games that I didn't think I was going to get my hands on. But then things pivoted and changed, and I did. And it's just the nature of CMON. They have their hooks into me and deep. And even when I think that I'll successfully walk away and not get their games, I do end up getting many of their games. Now, I do, some of their games I actually don't get. I have not gotten all, CMON is something like 45 Kickstarters. No, they have 49 Kickstarters. With Master of the Universe, they have 49 Kickstarters. There's a good, 10 to 15 of them I haven't gotten at all, but that's not a great ratio. I back most of their games. They have their hooks in and deep. Then on Monday, On Monday, we have To Back or Not To Back. Did another To Back or Not To Back roundup. Lots of games. Games are getting more expensive. We're going to be talking about this more and more every single week, I feel. But yeah, games are getting more expensive. There are a lot of expensive games. They're not getting cheaper. Even the games that I am looking at backing in this To Back or Not To Back, they're expensive. I want Relics of Rajavihara. I want Agamonia. I want at least one other that I can't recall. There's a bunch of games I want to get my hands on, but they are expensive. Games are getting more expensive. It's the nature of the freight increases and general logistics and all that stuff. So expect both retail and Kickstarter prices to increase. Then on Tuesday we had 3 different videos. We had a Master of the Universe review. Speaking of which, we had Master of the Universe Clash for Eternia from CMON. Reviewed that game. I gave it a 5 out of 5. Absolutely being added to my collection. For me, it's a no-brainer. It basically feels like the World of Smog, Rise of Moloch, and then it feels like it improved upon that in some ways and is different in other ways. Overall, it's one that I'm very much looking forward to. I'm not even a fan of the Master of the Universe IP. Could not care less about it. I've started watching the Netflix show, but that's my first exposure to it. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the powers and abilities, the asymmetric play, lots of fun. Master of the Universe, yeah, solid game, easy addition to my collection. Then we had, later on Tuesday, we had a review for Colab. Colab, I gave a 3 out of 5. It's one that I really like parts of the game, but some aspects of the game I feel still need to be either sped up or potentially a little more added to it. Now, I know they're doing that. I'm actively in talks with the designer as they are trying to make changes to some of the aspects of the game to streamline some things or to make them a little better improved. This is the weird nature of reviewing a game that isn't yet finished. Colab falls into a category of many games, a giant bucket of games where I am interested, not yet completely sold on it. Even in its current state, it's good, by the way. It's still a fun little puzzle. That's not the question. But again, I'm in the privileged position that I have a lot of games. And the game that I rated 3 out of 5, lots of 3 out of 5s out there. Lots of good games. But it's one that right now, it's not closing it for me, but I am keeping my eye on it because I'm curious to see where it goes. And then lastly, on Tuesday, we had a tutorial gameplay of the Isofarian Guard, which is, for my opinion, a short version of my opinion on Isofarian Guard, is I am very intrigued. And also not in any way able to give an opinion just yet. It's a game that it's way too early in the process for me to be able to tell you what I think of it. I could tell you that I love the story, the narrative, the immersion, the foreteller app does a solid job really sinking its teeth into you, getting its hooks into you. 2 different expressions. But either way, the foreteller app really does pull you in. And the gameplay I find intriguing so far, but not yet sold on it. Intrigued, but not yet sold, because it's just the nature of the fact that the Isofarian Guard is the puzzle gameplay they're giving you is so far very much tutorial based, what I've experienced. I need to see how it develops. I hope it continues to develop well. I will be playing it more and will have coverage on it, but right now I will say I'm enjoying myself, while not being able to give a firm opinion other than the fact that I am intrigued and looking forward to diving back into it. Then we have Wednesday. Wednesday was Master of the Universe Should You Back It? Short version is it's a CMON Kickstarter, so a no-brainer really. If you're interested in it, go ahead and back it. It'll hold its value. If you're not interested in it, you can pass on it. You don't need to back the game just because it'll hold its value. On Thursday we had Verdant, Cascadia, and Calico Play This Not That. Basically a video doing the Play This Not That of those 3 games with myself, Rena, Shira, and Jesse. I recommend watching it if you're interested in those games because we have very different opinions on exactly where it ends up, on which game is the best and why. There's one thing we all agree on, and you'll have to watch the video to find out. Then on Friday was a deluxeification video I did with Ricky, with my daughter. Basically, once a month I do a deluxeification video where we talk about board game upgrades, deluxeifications, all that. And this is one that I did with Ricky. We covered Tiny Towns, we covered Quacks of Quedlinburg. We specifically played Quacks of Quedlinburg earlier that week because I wanted Ricky to have played all the games. We had Cat Lady, we had Alice in Wonderland, or more specifically, Paint the Roses. But we had a bunch of games in the video. We went through all of those, but yeah, board game upgrades, coins, resources, inserts, all the good stuff, just different ways to upgrade and deluxify your game. And then finally today is Saturday, and we have obviously this video, and then later today we're going to have a review for Quests and Cannons, as well as a review for Furnace. So you can check those out, going up at 1 and 4 Eastern Standard Time, respectively. And then, coming up next week we have a bunch of videos, including our once every 3 months late pledge video. Once every 3 months I do a video covering all the late pledges, just going over everything, or not actually everything. I limit it to 100 games every time because I figure 100 games is more than enough to go over. So there's 45 new late pledges that we haven't talked about since the last video, and then 55 still outstanding late pledges. So if you are a new person to this series, if you haven't yet watched them, or if you've watched them, there's something in it for both of you. And basically I do segment them. So if you're someone who's watched prior ones, you don't need those other 55, that's going to be the second half of the video. So you're all good there. And then also, I have our third iteration of Do You Need It? Recent series I started. This is the third one, going into just games I've played, games I've reviewed, and where they fare and what they compare against. And this one I really went heavily into the comparison aspect, picking multiple games for each game that I can compare it to and saying, well, this one might be better for this, or that might be better for that. Just really diving into where new games stand and what other games I'd potentially recommend if you want something that you may already own or is just a potentially better version of. My goal is to basically point to the fact that there's a lot of new games coming out and you don't need all of them. There's something out there that you probably already own or should be looking at because it's better vetted, better rated by the marketplace that might give you that same feeling. And that is everything there. Which brings us to the games on the table. These are the games I'm hoping to get played this week, or some of them at least. I never get all of them played, but I usually get some of them played. We have Rush MD, which I think I talked about once before. Never actually got to the table. Hoping to get to the table soon, because I'd love to actually get this one played. Then we have Runestones, which I've read this rulebook like twice, 3 times now, and I am in the middle of the 3rd time right now. I really want to get to the table. It looks like a quick, easy read. Looks like a quick, easy play. It just happens to be we haven't played it. I had it set up one time, had it completely ready to go, and then one of the people who was supposed to play decided they wanted to fall asleep instead. So that didn't happen. But I really hope Runestones happens. I've been holding on to this for a while. We have Warpgate, which is going to be a bit of a space exploration. I think it's 4X adjacent. It might be full 4X. I don't know. But at the very least, it's 4X adjacent. Looks fun. This is going to be from Wolfgang Designer, who did Guardians of Atlantis and our game I recently reviewed, Trickshot. And then we have Hegemony, the Lead Your Class to Victory. This is a very heavy asymmetric economy game. It's going to be where you have different factions. You have the state, you have the middle class, you have the working class, and the capitalists, all basically trying to manage their own puzzle, all with different objectives as to how they win. It's not about having the most money, because at the end of the day, the capitalist class will have an easier time getting money than the working class. It's not about getting the most money. It's about different factions, like in Root. It's about getting the most points, and each faction has different ways of how they generate points in terms of fulfilling their own goals. The working class is not going to get more money than the capitalist. That's just inherent. But the working class can do a better job fulfilling what is their objective and what's their next step. Very interesting puzzle, very heavy. I should have content on it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to have a review on this one. This is one where there's so much going on that it's going to be one of those like first impressions reviews. Like, here's my opinion of it, but here's all the caveats as to the fact that I don't feel confident talking about, how nuanced or detailed certain classes are. I don't feel confident talking about balance. Some games are just heavy enough that I feel I need like 10, 15 plays to talk about. This is one of those games. I feel I need 10 or 15 plays to be able to call it a review without adding in first impressions. That said, I still plan on I already played it once. I'll be getting more plays into my belt, and I do plan on talking about it, just with that caveat of first impressions after like 4 plays or something like that. We'll figure it out. Either way, until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and as always, have a good one.